on ESPN 13.
Oops, I hit a button too early. Everybody on the chat got a little piece of the rejoin. Faraz Siddiqi is here with us for Fantasy Friday. He is the host of Upper Hand Fantasy. That is an Odyssey original podcast talking all things fantasy football. And he does a really great job, and he's a ton of fun. So we love having him on each and every Friday right here on the Insiders on ESPN 1320. Faraz, how we doing, man?
Really good. Really good. We were talking cheesecake right before we got on here, and now it's Friday. I think I know what kind of dessert I'm having tonight. I gotta hit Cheesecake Factory tonight for sure.
I'm trying to cut back. I'm trying to cut back on sweets because I'm a person, if I have one sweet, like right now I'm having a donut. If I have one sweet, it's just immediately falls off the cliff for the day.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm like, you know what? I'm trying to be disciplined. I'm going to eat this donut right now, but then I'm going to that's it for today.
Right.
But
it's not going to happen. You got to do it at night because at nighttime there's a thing that happens. It's like you have to go to sleep. Like you have no choice. Yeah. So it's like eat it before bed, eat as much as you can, and then knock out. That's my strategy at least.
See, that's why I think I like to cap it off with a nice port, because that port kind of lays the groundwork for you to like chill.
Yeah, I love
a
port.
You're done, like little sips, and then just kind of chill and relax and have it go quietly into the night.
All right, let's talk fantasy football.
Let's do this.
I could sit here and talk cheesecake all day, but we're going to talk fantasy football here with Faraz Siddiqi of Upper Hand Fantasy, an Odyssey original podcast. Get that on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your pods. Okay, big news in the NFL this week, and we had some more last night that we'll touch on. But first, for Sunday, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to start at quarterback for the Browns. Deshaun Watson out for the season. I'm not going to ask about Dorian Thompson-Robinson specifically because I think that's probably not a player unless you're in a 2-quarterback league that you're super interested in adding right now. But what does this do to the value of a Jerome Ford, of a Kareem Hunt, and of an Amari Cooper?
I don't love Amari Cooper, moving forward. It's one of those situations where we kind of knew what the situation was, without Dorian Thompson-Robinson. We only had a 1-game sample from him this year. That was against the Ravens. Amari Cooper obviously could not get it done in that game. I think he had like 1 catch for like 15 yards or something. I think we could give both of them the benefit of doubt for that particular matchup. This is a little bit of a better matchup against the Steelers. The Steelers they haven't been great against wide receivers for fantasy. They have been getting a little bit better, but it's one of those things where Amari Cooper was like in my top, 15 or 16 wide receivers over the past couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. Now he drops all the way down to like a borderline wide receiver 3 for me. He's like a low end wide receiver 3 for me. Like he is quite the plummet here for me personally. I need to see it first with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I need to see it. When it comes to that connection, and we haven't seen that yet. So it's super risky for me when there are a lot of other wide receivers available this week. And you mentioned Jerome Ford, right? I can touch on that real quick. I believe that Jerome Ford is a very, very good buy low right now. I would, with all of the news, he was already a buy low for me coming into the week before the Deshaun Watson news. And now it's obviously, I think he does take a little bit of a hit here with Deshaun Watson not there. But, it's not like Watson was this like quarterback who was just absolutely killing it this year, right? He wasn't, right? He was just a mid-tier quarterback at best. So it's one of those things where they're going to depend on the ground game, number one. Number two, his utilization over the last 2 weeks has increased tremendously. And he is the clear 1A in this backfield. He's also their passing down back as well, which was formerly Kareem Hunt's role. So moving forward, Kareem Hunt, by the way, he has been their goal line back. Even in the last 2 games, he has been that guy. If there is some sort of switch to Ford, if they start giving him some goal line looks here and there, I think he could potentially be a top 15, even top 12 the rest of the way if the utilization sticks and he gets the goal line carries. Here's the thing. The Browns defense is really, really good.
It is.
And they're going to stay in games because of that. So the game script for the most part and the schedule for Jerome Ford moving forward all the way up to all the way up until championship week, it's pretty good.
You brought up a term there. You said mid-tier quarterback. Why would a team that doesn't have a mid-tier quarterback like your New York Jets not have traded for Josh Dobbs? I'm just saying.
Great question. Well, you got to wonder that the Browns, they wish they had Josh Dobbs still, right? They traded him to Arizona, right, before the season started, and then Yeah, I mean, I wish the Jets did. Honestly, like I really did, because like look at how he's performing now in Minnesota.
This team
And
plays.
those fantasy options are still going to be thriving over there. Look at TJ Hawkinson last week.
Faraz, Siddiqi, Upper Hand Fantasy, an Odyssey original podcast, joining us as he does each and every Friday for Fantasy Friday. I'm going to ask about my team. I'm going to be a little selfish here because, dude, all of a sudden I'm sitting here, I'm 7-3, and I've got all my bye weeks for my best players cleared, and I'm looking a lot better than I was after the first couple of weeks. So here's my situation.
Is that right before I started to come on the show?
That's 100% what happened.
Okay.
I was trash, and then I got the Faraz bump. So I've been starting Noah Brown. Okay, he had a monster couple weeks. He's out this week, which eliminates part of my question. So my question in here is twofold. I'm going to start at tight end. I have Dalton Kincaid and George Kittle. Which one do you like this week?
I'm personally going Kincaid. I think the matchup against the Jets is not bad at all. Matter of fact, it's a relatively good matchup for tight ends going up against the Jets. Kincaid has been getting it done ever since he's gotten the opportunity, right? When Dawson Knox went down, like he's been getting it done every single week. Here's the thing with George Kittle. Number one, it's one of the worst matchups for tight ends. Number two, if you look at his target share last week, it wasn't really like there. Like it's not like he just had that one long catch pretty much for that touchdown.
Yeah.
So all of their guys are healthy. You have CMC, Debo, Ayuk. Debo and Ayuk have really good matchups too this week. So it's one of those things where, Kittle, he could be the odd man out. He could score a touchdown. He could score 3. The variance for George Kittle is all over the place, right? The floor is 0. The ceiling is 40 points. But, it's one of those things where you have somebody like Kincaid who you're kind of confident in to give you that solid floor, and he has the upside because of that offense. I think he's the guy I'm going with.
Okay, that clears part one. Thank you. Part two. So I'm going to start Dalton Kincaid. In my flex, should I go George Kittle or Michael Wilson for the Cardinals?
That's where the ceiling comes in. I'm going to go George Kittle there. I like Wilson. He almost scored that touchdown. Well, he scored a touchdown. They took it away last week. But, it really comes down to McBride and Hollywood on that offense. Rondale Moore, little sneaky wide receiver if you need one. Okay, if you need a little flex play, PPR, he has a really, really, really good matchup out of the slot if you need it. He had a 30% target share last week as well. So Michael Wilson could be the odd man out. I do like him as a waiver wire ad. I do like him rostered. But between those two options, I'm going to go Kittle.
Great.
Kyle's out there trying to steal my bit where I ask about my fantasy team.
I'm finally good, so I need help now.
Okay.
I'm in deep waters, James.
I reached out to Faraz last week, the week before, and he gave me a last second, like, hey, this is who I would start. I had this weird situation this week where I'm down to one running back, but my son and I, our team, we're like all in on wide receivers, and we have so many wide receivers, it's crazy. So, I mean, we've got Puka, we've got Terry McLaurin, we've got Nico Collins, we've got Rashee Rice, we've got Chris Olave, we've got Drake London, we've got Noah Brown, we've got Romeo Doubs, and this isn't even a big roster. We just don't have
collection. The collection you got there.
We have a huge collection. So we've dumped all of our backup quarterbacks at this point. We've dumped all of our backup running backs because they're trash. But I need 4. And so I have Dobbs, I've got Noah Brown, I've got Nico Collins.
I have to write this down, man. You got to say it again. Go ahead.
Okay. I've got Dobbs, I've got Noah Brown, I've got Nico Collins, I've got Scary Terry, I've got CD Lamb, I've got Rice, and I've got Puka.
Okay. Rashee Rice, not Jerry.
Rashee, yes, not Jerry.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say Jerry Rice has to be in, right?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna go.
I need 4 of these guys.
Okay, we're gonna go CD number 1.
Of course.
We're gonna go easy. Puka number 2.
That's an easy one too.
We're gonna go Nico number 3.
Okay,
great.
And we are going to go. Are we gonna go Scary Terry, or are we gonna go Rashee? Are we gonna go Scary Terry, or are we gonna go Rashee? We are gonna go.
Good.
I get hookup points. So Rashee, I do have Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, of course.
Rashee Rice. We gotta go Rashee Rice.
Wow. There it is. Wow. I'm intrigued. I'm doing it. That's all I got to say.
And you get a piece of the Monday night game. That's fun.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's true.
By the way, Rashee Rice is one of the best matchups of any wide receiver this week out of the slot. The Eagles have been the worst team defending the slot this year over the last 4 weeks, over the last 8 weeks, and over the course of the season.
Oh, see, that's why we have the great Faraz Siddiqi on.
He's the very best. He's the
He
very
is the
best
very
from
best.
Upper Hand Fantasy. All right, I'm going to grab some of our questions from the chat. Starting with our guy Soren, Mike Evans against the 49ers or Jalen Waddle against the Raiders?
Oh, this is good. Both guys are obviously good, but Mike Evans, I'm going with Mike Evans here. He's a top 10 wide receiver for me this week. Really, really good matchup against the 49ers. The 49ers have just, not been great against wide receivers. They did their thing last week. They kind of held Calvin Ridley in check, but that's not as hard to do. Mike Evans is a much tougher matchup. The 49ers have given up the 8th most fantasy points to perimeter wide receivers over the last 4 weeks, the 5th most overall to wide receivers over the last 4. So I think Mike Evans is the play there.
I'm going to go with this one from Dubs916. Pacheco or Nakua, because I know that you actually did a video on this on your Instagram handle, which is it's Upper Hand Fantasy on Instagram, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I did a video on buying Isaiah Pacheco. Now, this week against the Eagles, very, very, very tough matchup for him. But beyond that, I think it's one of those things where great playoff schedule. His role actually increased before the bye. I'm talking, no other running back, is getting the type of work that Pacheco's getting in that backfield. 70% of the rushes, his route participation has increased a ton. But this week, I have to go with Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua has had a 30% plus target share with Matthew Stafford. You know what's crazy? When Cooper Kupp came back, Puka Nacua's target share actually went up, which is absolutely crazy to think. But he is a top 15 wide receiver after this week. Maybe we bump him up even more. But you got to start him. He does have a little bit of a tough matchup. He's going to see a lot of Trey Brown against the Seahawks. But I do think that regardless, with that type of target share, with what he's been doing all year, you got to have him in your lineup this week.
Very good. I'm gonna grab another one from the chat here because I'm done. My lineup's all set.
Yeah, me too.
All right, very good. I'm just gonna start at the top. Our guy Ramsey wants to know: do you think the Raiders cover against Miami? I don't even know.
I don't. I think it's one of those things where Miami, they're at home. The Raiders have had 2 matchups against the Jets and the Giants where they didn't really have to do a whole lot. Right, they went up against two offenses that don't really could do much. They don't do much on offense. They could depend on Josh Jacobs. They didn't have to throw the ball a whole lot. They could play safe. I don't know if that's going to be the case, right? Like, what happens when Miami goes up by 2 touchdowns? Like, are they built for that? I don't know if they are, right? Like, yeah, sure, you can give Josh Jacobs the ball 25 times on the ground, but if you can't do that, if the game script doesn't allow for that, what do you do? And do you break down when that happens? I think this is a little bit of a scary game for the Raiders.
I'm going to keep it kind of in the same vein here. Achan, Mostert, or Cheesecake, and like I'm taking Cheesecake overall over the other two. But I think the bigger question is, how much is Achan's return going to damage Mostert, who leads all running backs in touchdowns?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna affect it for sure. I don't think Mostert turns into a pumpkin cheesecake. You see what I did there?
Nice,
there it
dude.
is.
That's very good. Hang
There
on,
it
let's
is.
get some
But
applause.
I do think that. Thank you. I do think that Achane is going to be a potential top 10 running back. I have him as a top 10 fantasy running back this week. Now, that could change depending on reports between now and Sunday with like how much work he's going to get in his first week back, blah, 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 blah. But I do think that, he is going to be the 1A in this offense and most is going to be the 1B moving forward. It is going to affect them. Obviously that one game when HN went completely, ridiculously, crazy. I forget that we're on the radio here. So I held my tongue here. So
well done.
Thank you. I do think that, there isn't always going to be room for 300 yards rushing on this offense. So there is going to be a little bit of a hit for Mostert. However, don't undervalue him. I think most people are undervaluing Mostert's role moving forward.
Talking with Faraz Siddiqi, Upper Hand Fantasy, an Odyssey original podcast, taking your fantasy football questions now at ESPN 1320. youtube.com/ESPN1320. That is. Our guy Russell wants to know, and he brings up Mark Andrews, who was injured last night in the Ravens win over the Bengals. He is out for the season. If you are a Mark Andrews owner in fantasy, what do you do?
I mean, listen, it's tough. I mean, you can't overcome. It's really hard to overcome, having a high end tight end and losing him right now. Trey McBride is somebody who I would be putting in offers for right now if you can. I think that his value isn't necessarily as high as the guys who've been doing it all season, like Kincaid and Laporta. Especially Laporta has been doing it since the beginning of the year. He might be somebody that you can grab, but he ends up being like a top 3 or 4 tight end when it's all said and done at the end of the year. So I think trading for someone like that makes sense. Now, if you don't have that option and you just have to pick up scraps off the waiver wire, Tyler Conklin, the last 2 weeks, has caught 100% of the 13 targets that was thrown his way. And, this is a decent matchup, not a terrible matchup against the Bills by any means for tight ends. So you can put him in your lineup, especially in PPR. He's been, getting it done for the most part. Zach Wilson has been looking his way. That's number one. Number two, I think Luke Musgrave is available in a lot of waiver wires. I think they're going up against the Chargers this week. Decent matchup there. So I'm perfectly fine with those two guys as streamers. Hopefully they're available.
Yeah, I was able to get Dalton Schultz a couple of weeks ago, and that's just been
what?
He's been awesome.
Yeah, it's a W.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Let's hit a couple more of these. How about this one? John Poles, Adam Thielen or Deontay Johnson. They also have Amari Cooper. I'm assuming one of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just rank all three of these guys, right? So I would go Adam Thielen number 1, Deontay Johnson number 2, and then distant third, Amari Cooper. I think, Deontay Johnson on paper, it looks like a really, really tough matchup against Cleveland, and it is, no doubt. But they do run man coverage at one of the highest rates in the league. Deontay Johnson, that's his wheelhouse. He can separate against anyone. I think, over the last 4 games, this is a tweet from Al Zeidenfeld. Over the last 4 games, he has averaged 12.5 targets against the Browns, and this is a division foe, so this is over the last 2 years. So he should be in lineups in PPR leagues. However, Adam Thielen, a little bit of a change at play caller here for the Panthers, back to Frank Reich, right? And this is one of those things where over the last 3 games, Thielen's usage hasn't been as good as it was before the bye. Okay, so things going back Thielen's directions. Now, this is a tough matchup against the Cowboys, no doubt. They have defended the slot pretty well this year. However, I think the target share is going to be there. He's going to be targeted a little bit more downfield than he was over the past 3 games when Frank Reich was not calling the plays. So I do think that he gets a bump from the change at play caller, but a little bit of a downgrade because of the matchup. But if I had to choose, I'm going Thielen.
We have a trade in our set of questions here.
Oh,
are you trading Travis Kelce away in exchange for Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, and Jake Ferguson?
I'm okay with this as long, if you're really desperate for some depth, right? Like you lost your wide receiver, you lost your, you just lost a running back, I totally get it. I'm okay with it, doing something like this. But however, here's the thing with me, this just drastically lowers your ceiling. I think if you are plugging in these guys and like nobody's really moving to the bench, like you had an RB2 who, is basically on waiver wires in most leagues. You have a wide receiver 2 who, you really can't do anything with. I'm perfectly fine moving Kelce and turning him into 3 solid pieces. I'm perfectly fine with this if that's the case. Now, I'm also perfectly fine with the other way around on this deal. If, I'm very solid at wide receiver, very solid at running back, and I just need that big upgrade for Kelce to put my team over the top. So this can work either way for me.
All right. I like that answer. I would have a tough time trading Kelce. It's just this is a good one. Gibbs, Connor, Mostert has to start too.
Yeah, I'm going with Gibbs and Mostert here. Personally, I think Gibbs is almost a must start at this point. Like the role that he saw last week out of the bye, really, really good, right? He outsnapped Montgomery. He got some goal line carries. Now, thank you, Montgomery, for allowing him to give him that goal line carry, because he was like, hey, man, Jameer, do you want this? And he gave it to him. But he did see only 1 less snap at the goal line than David Montgomery. So this is good. This is good. Like at least that door is open for Jameer Gibbs, whereas before this week, the door was completely shut on him getting any work near the goal line. And also the passing down stuff is there for him. The good thing about Jahmyr Gibbs is that this week, who are they going up against again? The Lions are going up against the Chicago Bears. The Bears have allowed the least yards per carry to running backs, the fewest yards per carry to running backs, but they're allowing the most yards per reception to running backs. So this is right up in Gibbs' wheelhouse there. So he's going to be able to get it done. Between Mostert and Connor, I'm going Mostert just because of the offense that they're on and the matchup as well.
Let's jump over to wide receivers. We're talking Faraz Siddiqi here. It's a Fantasy Friday with Faraz Siddiqi of Upper Hand Fantasy. And Faraz, our guy Leezy, who actually traded away Christian McCaffrey for AJ Brown. I don't know if you remember that deal, but that's not working out horribly.
Yeah,
it hasn't been the worst thing. He wants to know Tutu Atwell or Jaden Reed. And I got to tell you, I've been keeping track of Tutu Atwell because somebody tried to trade him to me. And they were like, oh, when Kupp comes back, he's going to take all of Puka's targets and Tutu's role isn't going to change at all. I said, nay. And Tutu Atwell, since Puka Nacua came back, 10 catches for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns. I feel great about turning down that deal, but would you start him this week in a flex spot?
I don't think so. I like Jaden Reed personally. The Chargers have been giving up the 6th most fantasy points to slot wide receivers this year. It's a really good matchup. He got it done last week in a really good matchup as well. I'm personally going Jaden Reed. Better matchup, better usage.
Excellent.
Interesting. I'm going to hit you with a question that I sometimes, this isn't the first time I've hit you with it, but in my league, tomorrow is the last day to make trades.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone that you're like, man, go get this guy because he's just going to blow up in the last quarter of the season or the last half?
Breece Hall. Breece Hall is the guy that I am trying to get anywhere I can. The matchup is really good. Them moving Michael Carter is a little bit more significant than people might think because Michael Carter has been the one who's been getting all the 2-minute work, most of the 2-minute work, almost all of it, almost all the long down distance work. Basically, the passing down work is what Michael Carter has been being used for. He's gone. That's not going to be Dalvin Cook because Dalvin Cook has gotten almost zero of that work, throughout the season. It's definitely not going to be Izzy Abanikanda. That's not his game. He's more of a runner. So this is going to be all Breece Hall. We can potentially look up and see him getting 75 to 80% of the snap share. This 2-minute work that he's going to get and this long down distance work that he's going to get now on top of the early down stuff, is going to be significant. So I see a world where he finishes top 5. And on top of that, the rest of the season schedule is looking pretty good.
I'm going to rapid fire 5 of these at you real quick because I want to make sure we're getting through as many of these as we can. From our listeners and our viewers at youtube.com/ESPN1320. Tyjae Spears against the Jags or Jaylen Warren against the Browns?
Jaylen Warren.
Very good. Quentin Johnston or Tyjae Spears?
It's sad, but Tyjae Spears.
I relate to King Fan 333 here with that kind of choice to make. Where's the next one? Calvin Ridley or Michael Wilson?
Calvin Ridley.
Great. CJ Stroud or Justin Herbert? Ooh, that's a good dang.
That is a good
Tough
one.
choice.
I'm going to go CJ Stroud.
Yeah, it feels like Stroud to me is a guy I just want to rock with every week.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm Devin Singletary or Adam Thielen.
Oh, it's tough. I'm going to go Thielen.
Okay. And then at tight end, are you liking Luke Musgrave or your guy in New York, right? Tyler Conklin?
I'm going to go Conklin.
Okay. And last one for me, Jordan Addison or Terry McLaurin in a flex spot this week.
Oh, man. I'm going to go Addison. I'm going to go McLaurin.
Perfect. All right, very good. Oh, wait, hang on. One more. I forgot. Pacheco, Mostert, and Swift. You got to pick 2.
I am going Swift and Mostert.
Very good. Faraz Siddiqi, he's the best in the business. Upper Hand Fantasy is where you can find his work. UpperHandFantasy.com. Upper Hand Fantasy on Instagram, right? That's the handle?
Yep, that's right.
Upper Hand Fantasy on Instagram. And of course, on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts, just search Upper Hand Fantasy and make sure to subscribe to all of Faraz's content. It is really, really good stuff. And it's helped me get to 7-3 on the season after a little bit of a rough start. So Faraz, thank you. And I can't wait to talk to you next week. Actually,
awesome.
next week's the holiday. We'll get in touch. We'll see if we can work out a time middle of the week before the holiday to get you on to Talk Fantasy. Appreciate you, buddy.
Good
Seeing you, man.
You guys. See ya. Bye.
All right, there you go. Faraz Siddiqi, Upper Hand Fantasy, an Odyssey original.